Herzlich willkommen, verehrte Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer aus Palm Beach. Unweit von hier in Mar-a-Lago finden in diesen Stunden und Tagen wichtige Entscheide statt. Es ist ein regelrechter Krimi im Gang. Es geht darum, wer welche Positionen bekommt in der neuen Regierung. Und neben mir sitzt Karen Giorno. Sie war Kampagnenchefin in Florida 2016 und sie war auch Teil dieser Transition. Und sie weiß ganz genau, was sich jetzt in diesen Stunden abspielt. Und sie kann uns erklären, welche Entscheide jetzt gefällt werden. Sie hat im letzten Interview eine Prognose abgegeben. Ich möchte Sie kurz darauf ansprechen. Karen, I'm very happy that you're here with us, sharing your thoughts. First of all, congratulations to your predictions. In our last interview, you said, very correctly, Donald Trump's going to be the next president.
Well, thank you for having me back, and it's wonderful that I'm here to be able to say with confidence that the United States elections will be certified, as I mentioned before, and that the winner is Donald Trump. I think one of the things that we said in our predictive conversation was that maybe perhaps that it would be a little bit of a delay, but it was such an overwhelming and decisive victory on Tuesday that the concession speech, while it should have been probably that night, came the following day from Kamala Harris camp.
I had a short moment, or I had a few moments in Mar-a-Lago where I was able to look into the clockwork or in the machine room of the building of the new government. Of course, we don't know exactly what's going on, but we have a first appointment, which is Susie Wiles as chief herself. Very important, the first woman ever in US history to take that post. I am told that Donald Trump was introduced by you to her. Is that correct?
Well, interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but yes. Back in 2015 and 2016, when I was tasked with running the state of Florida, one of my directives was to find two co-chairs of the largest swing state in the nation. Now, that would seem pretty normal, but we had 16 other campaigns happening at that time. One of them was Marco Rubio's campaign, a sitting senator, and Jeb Bush, and others. So it was kind of slim pickings and we got into the campaign late with regard to staffing it and to finding really credible, strong co-chairs. One of them was Joe Gruters, who was the vice chair of the Republican Party of Florida, who agreed. And then the search kind of began on my end to find a complement, and that was Susie Wiles.
Now, Susie Wiles has been with the president for many years, ever since you introduced her to him, or him to her, and she's said to be the rock, a very, very solid person. And can you characterize her a little bit, because you know her very well?
Sure, and I knew her prior to the Trump campaign when I was working with Governor Scott. She was known back then as being exactly what you just said, a rock, a formidable player in the political world, because she ran Governor Scott's first campaign successfully. But Susie has always been known to be very steady, very even. Not emotional. When I say not emotional, it's not that she doesn't have empathy or empathetic, she is. But there's no drama when it comes to working with Susie. She doesn't permit it. And it's a very methodical shop that she runs. Everything is, the trains run on time. And people are capable of knowing that when she says she's going to do something, that it actually happens. So she has a lot of credibility, a lot of integrity, and a lot of respect, and has for the last 4 years. But more so, it's solidified now that Donald Trump has selected her first appointment, like you said, the first female to hold the position of chief of staff. But this was really, really important that he chose her first, because she will be leading the team with the transition, with the landing team, and moving forward with his administration, she is going to be formidable.
Now, Mar-a-Lago in these days looks like a beehive. There's so many important or semi-important people buzzing around, probably trying to get a job or stop others from having a job or getting a job. In a nutshell, can you explain what is this atmosphere now around the president?
Sure, and that's a great way to describe it, and I think that's pretty normal. It's a frenzy. And the fact is that the next, I would say, 2 weeks, you're going to see more appointments come out, announcements on appointments. But there's 2 lanes that occur right now. Clearly, the appointment of Susie Wiles sets that tone and tenor and the beginning of the process. Okay? She is like the head of the process, and there's a process. So there's 2 parallel lanes happening right now, and that is who's going to go into the White House proper, the executive branch. That's the West Wing, the East Wing, the old executive office building, the new executive office building. These are the support. That's the support staff to the president, okay, and the vice president. And then there's the other lane, which is a little sexier, in which people really want to know more about.
What is this wing about?
That lane is who's going to be the Secretary of State. Like who's going to fill out the president's cabinet? Who's going to be the head of national security? National
sorry
security.
to interrupt. In other words, those are the key figures that we see on television. But what you're saying is that the people in the back are equally important, maybe more important.
Sure. So we're in the process of the sausage being made, so to speak. What the public normally sees is at the end of that sausage making process, you get to sit down and enjoy the meal, right? The presentation of the meal and the meal itself. There's a lot of work that goes into making sure that you have the right team in the executive branch supporting the president in his day-to-day agenda, okay? And then you have the cabinet level posts, all of the presidential appointees that have Senate confirmation that are required. That's a whole nother process, but you can't get to that process really. You can start the process, but you can't get to the end of that process without that core team in place that's going to support the president in the day-to-day on the operations.
On general terms, what is the president looking for when he builds this new ship that needs to be watertight? Because we know from the last time there were many people there were leaks, there were informations coming out to the press which damaged the presidency and the agenda. So what does he have to look for, in general terms, in order to build a watertight ship?
Well, just to give you some perspective, and your viewers some perspective, is that in 2016, 2017, the president was going in pretty fresh, pretty new, didn't even know what to expect and how the executive branch worked and how the government actually worked. That's not unusual either. I'm not saying that every president doesn't have that learning curve. They do. There will only be 47 presidents so far of the United States of America coming up. And that's not a lot of people, right? So how the administration runs, how government works, how relationships work, not only domestically but internationally, that all matters. That goes into the mix of this. But the good news is that he's been through this before. So now he has an understanding that he didn't have in 2017 when he took office. Okay, so the idea that this is going to be a bumpy ride or there's going to be missteps. Okay, look, the law of averages suggests we're not going to get it right 100% of the time. But I am very confident that under Susie Wiles' leadership now, and the fact that the president has 4 years to understand how the White House works and what he needs as the president, that this is going to be a smoother transition than it was in 2017.
Now, the center, of course, is President-elect Donald Trump. What is he like in such a situation? Because there's, as we said before, there's so many people around him, so many people who want a job or want to stop others from having a job. How does he make his decisions based on your experience when you saw him and you worked with him?
Well, again, there's a different Donald Trump from 2016 to 2024. In 2016, he was the first-time candidate. He has now served as the President of the United States. Post-presidency, he has gone through all of the things he went through with lawfare and getting thrown every curveball possible. We have the most prepared president-elect that we have ever had in the history of this country. This individual has been through the fire and survived. Okay, so the way that he is going to, in my opinion, operate is to say, this is my agenda. It's been laid out. No one should be surprised. He's been telling us what he wants to do on day one when he's president. Okay, the first 100 days of his presidency are super important, and he knows this. This is how he's going to get judged in history, but also there are small windows of accomplishment, a time frame for accomplishment. The first 100 days is the first benchmark. The next benchmark is the next 2 years, because we have a midterm election, which could change up the House or the Senate. Okay, so right now he's got the Senate. It's more likely that he's going to have the House. Okay, no one is suggesting he won't. Stranger things can happen, but my prediction, if I were to have it today with you, is that he has the House. And so therefore he has the House, he has the Senate, he has the presidency. He has an opportunity right now to basically push through his priority agenda items. However, this is what they're doing right now, is determining what those priorities are, okay? And they're ranking them from the top to the bottom. In the first 100 days, what do we want to accomplish? How are we going to get these agenda items passed? If it requires, because it may not require, but if it requires the cooperation of Congress, okay? But there's executive orders that can happen, and there's discussion right now. But what do we do about all the illegal immigration folks that came over? What is going to happen with regard to their status? All of this is going to be addressed, and you're going to see this in lightning speed. It's another prediction I'm going to give you. This is going to happen in lightning speed. Government doesn't operate in lightning speed. This will, because these agenda items will be determined by the fact that you enforce the laws on the books, okay? You clear out the DOJ where there are problems in the DOJ regarding the execution of the law and the laws on the books, and any other agency that's going to be a hindrance to the execution of the law, okay? The executive branch, not to give a history lesson everyone, but the executive branch is the executor of laws. They don't create the laws, they execute the laws. And so now it's just a matter of using the power of the executive branch to execute on laws.
I'm very confident that you said that, because your predictions seem to be becoming truth all the time. So let's see. You say lightning speed. A last question about people in Europe. Where I'm from, Switzerland, Germany, are all these places. Which, thank you. And we are, not we, but the people in general are under shock, right? Because they didn't want Donald Trump to come back. Of course, he had no say. Luckily, they had no say, but they're in shock. When you say lightning speed, what is the best way for Europe to look at this new term of Donald Trump and to brace oneself for an action in lightning speed?
I think that there are common ground issues that will be addressed first. There won't be controversial issues that are addressed first. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And I've heard that the process here is going to be to embrace our allies and our NATO partners, and to ensure that is still firm, and that there's not going to be a break in those types of protocols. So there's an assurance that's going to come from this new administration that to recognize our allies, to recognize our friends, and to understand that even though America is a sovereign nation, and that the president has maybe particular ways of dealing with the war in Ukraine, the Middle East, China, just the development of these actors out on the world stage that are hostile towards Western democracies, Iran. The idea that Donald Trump is going to come in and not be an ally or a friend to Europe is if that's the conclusion, it's an emotional conclusion. It's not the reality of the situation. The State Department, we don't know who the Secretary of State is going to be, but the State Department and all of the agencies that actually support our friends and our friendships and our relationships will remain intact. Not much will change there. It's just a matter of policies that maybe favor one agenda over another, but nothing that's going to be so shocking to Europeans that it's like the world is going to change so drastically. The only way it will, let me just say this, is that I think the wars will end very quickly.
That wouldn't be bad news. But like what you're saying is what actually Donald Trump always said over the years, that America first, his policy of America first doesn't mean America alone.
No, not at all. Exact opposite of that conclusion. America first means protecting the sovereignty of our country. And if we protect the sovereignty of our nation, we respect the sovereignty of other nations. Each nation should be able to determine what is in its best interests. Okay, there are commonalities with Western democracies. Okay, so it makes sense that if the policy benefits the US, it's also going to benefit Europe or that other Western democracy. That's a good, conclusion of a fit. But I don't think you're going to see drastic. Everyone keeps wanting to. Donald Trump's bringing in these drastic changes. There'll be changes for sure. Please expect changes. It happens in every change of administration, and even if Kamala Harris had won, which she was not, there would have been changes to the Biden-Harris policies. It would have been the Harris-Walz policies. There will be changes. So I just want everyone to maybe take a deep breath here and understand that the world is not going to end with a Donald Trump re-election. It's not going to end. And in fact, you're going to see very strong economic numbers coming from your stock market to our stock market. And our trade agreements will continue to, help each country right the economic ship. Right now, everyone is in an inflationary period. That's got to end, or we're all going to be in trouble. So these are some of the priorities you're going to see on the economic level, on the policy making, on international affairs, ending the wars, and for us, it's really just controlling our borders. Okay, because our borders need to be managed on day one, and they will be.
Thank you for these words of confidence, because it reminds me a little bit of Ronald Reagan's time when he said, "It's morning in America, and this time I hope it's also morning in the world." Karen, thank you so much for your time. It was a great pleasure to have you back.
Pleasure is mine, and I would just add one more thing. It is peace through strength.
That's also a rating of
It is.
peace through strength.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you.